Hello, my name is Chloe. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm bringing to you my December wrap-up. So December definitely felt like my best reading month. I feel like one of the summer months was probably better now I've said that, but I read 27 books in December, and a lot of them were like very easy, quick things, but that number just seems insane to me. What that does mean is this will potentially be a very long wrap up if I talk too much about each book, so I'm going to really try and keep it brief and not go on too much. In terms of stats, my average rating came out at a 3.3 stars, so it was kind of average. I did read some really good books, but I did read some really naff books as well. So just for the star ratings, I had 2 1-star books, 1 1.5-star books, 3 2-star books, 4 3-star books, 2 3.5-star books, 6 4-star books, 3 4.5-star books, 2 5-star books, and 4 books I didn't rate. So just to start on those books I didn't rate, because there are several reasons why I don't rate books. The first book I have here is Bridge to Terabithia by a person whose name has completely slipped my mind. It will be on the screen, I do apologise. So Bridge to Terabithia I didn't rate because I genuinely didn't know how I felt about this book. I still don't. It was one I was going to look back on and maybe give a numbered rating. I listened to the audiobook for this. It was an enjoyable time. I did genuinely enjoy the time I spent listening to this, but I can't really remember too much about it. One thing I definitely want to do is watch the movie, because I've heard a lot of people say it is absolutely amazing, but at this stage I still don't know what I enjoyed about this book. I also didn't want to give it a negative rating if it was just that I didn't retain the information. That didn't feel fair. So for now, we're stuck at a no rating. The next book that I don't have physically in front of me and that I didn't rate is A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. So I read this because it was the group book for the Very Merry Readathon. I have never read this before. I know a lot of people seem to revisit it every Christmas. One thing I definitely want to do for next year is to get a nice edition and sit and read it physically, because this year I did listen to this year, when I post this, it will be next year. So this year, last year, 2020, Christmas, December 2020, I listened to the audiobook. And I did actually listen to it while I was wrapping presents, and I was like, my mind was on other things. They were menial things, but other things. And I was sort of rushing to get it finished very quickly. I was also quite unwell during the Very Merry Readathon. Can't say that quickly, Very Merry Readathon. So I just didn't want to give this a numbered rating because, one, it's a classic. I struggle with giving them ratings anyway because I never quite understand what I think about them. But also, two, I wasn't in the best mental space myself to know whether I was enjoying it. Does that even make sense? But yeah, no numbered rating for that one, but I do want to revisit it next Christmas. The next book I didn't give a rating is Sleepovers by Jacqueline Wilson. This is a very, very quick children's book that is about 5 girls called the Alphabet Club because their names start A, B, C, D, E, and they all have sleepover parties for their birthdays. But one of the girls, who is happened to be called Chloe, is evil. I enjoyed my time revisiting this because it was one of my childhood favourites. I see where I liked it as a child, but now I do also see like the negative side of it. There was a very moving moment in here where the main character Daisy's sister is disabled, and as a young kid she is still like embarrassed about her sister and doesn't want her friends to know about her. So there were some very positive messages, I feel personally, in accepting her sister and like letting her friends see her sister and like play with her. So that was positive, but I also don't want to speak to the representation of stuff like that because it's not something I personally have any knowledge of. So yeah, didn't want to give this a numbered rating because I'm not really sure how it marks up. I also didn't like the whole revenge on the evil kid storyline, but I read it. The next book I didn't give a rating, but I did love it, is The Little Prince. So I have this gorgeous edition. It is stunning. Like, look at this. So I will be keeping this copy around, and it's definitely a book I want to revisit in the future. But I quickly sat maybe an hour total and sped through this. This is the story of like is he an alien? I guess he's an alien who visits Earth and has like life lessons from different planets. It was very sweet. I see why people love this. There are a couple of quotes in here that I feel like could be posted everywhere as very influential quotes. But I also didn't want to give this a numbered rating because in terms of how much enjoyment I actually got out of it, it's a 1 or 2 star. But I appreciate that there is much more meaning behind this book than I got out of it from sitting and flying through it. So, one to revisit. I am holding on to it. Now, the 1-star books. Let's first go with the one I probably hated the most, is Buried Alive by Jacqueline Wilson. So if you haven't picked up, there is a bit of a Jacqueline Wilson thing going on here, which would have been explained in my book haul video for December, so please go do check that out. But you'll be seeing a lot of Jacqueline Wilson books on my wrap-ups in 2021. So Buried Alive I picked up because it was a very, very quick book. And this is about Tim, who is going on a family holiday and he asked to invite his friend Biscuits. Tim is a bit of a wimp, in the nicest word, and his dad is sort of like disapproving of him a little bit because he's just a bit of a wimp. So he decides he's going to take his friend along so that he has someone to play with and he doesn't have to like deal with his dad constantly. My issue with this book was the representation of Biscuits. So Biscuits is an overweight child. But the entire book was focused on how much Biscuits was eating. So first I've just opened this diary entry about how he's had sausages, then ice cream, and then candy floss. There was a lot more saying he ate a lot of sausages. Like, I'm not going to be able to find it now because it's on demand. But the whole book was, oh, well, Biscuits will come with if we get him food. And I just didn't like it. It really, really grinded on me. And I feel like it could be, like, it's not the best thing ever. I do understand why I loved the storyline as a child, but I'm getting rid of this. And the next 1-star book, which I'm actually a little bit upset about, is Picture Me Gone by Meg Rossoff, or Rossoff, we're still not sure. And this is a perfect condition hardback book that is signed. And I hated it. I've hated it. This is about a girl called, what is her name? Mila, whose dad's friend goes missing in America. So she flies from England with her dad to America to try and find her dad's friend. I didn't like it because of how I felt it was advertised versus how it's advertised in the blurb and then what the story is actually about. So it says, Mila has a gift. She can read a room, a person, a situation and tell if you're happy or pregnant or having an affair. I went in thinking Mila had some sort of supernatural power. She doesn't. She just has a pretty decent intuition, which isn't even always right. I wasn't sure what age range this was aimed at. It looks YA to me, but I guess I was wrong. And I just feel like the story was completely flat. So 1 star. Next, the 1.5-star books, which will not be a surprise if you've been watching the last few of my wrap-ups that this is down low on the list, is the next book in the Georgia Nicholson series, which is Dancing in My Nuddy Pants by Louise Renison. This is book number 3, I believe. No, it's not. It's book number 4. It was a bad time. So I'm reading all of the Georgia Nicholson books because I loved the Angus Songs and Perfect Snogging movie as a child. And then I saw the whole series on sale for £10, so grabbed them. Wish I wouldn't have bothered, but you know, I own them now and I don't want to just get rid of them. They're very easy, quick reads. They are enjoyable in terms of how much I dislike them while I read them. I find it quite a fun experience to try and put myself in the headspace of a teenage girl who may have loved these books. I can't tell you too much about my problems with this book, with it being the 4th book in the series, but this is, again, Georgia making awful decisions in terms of relationships and respecting others and stuff like that. So 1.5 stars. Okay, the angle has shifted slightly because I still haven't learned and I will continue to sit on my feet while filming until I notice 10 minutes in that I'm in pain. So next, the 2-star books. The first one I want to talk about is Just in Time for Christmas by Kim Boykin, I believe it was. This was something I picked up for free on my Kindle for the festive readathon, and it was disappointing. I won't say too much about it. There's not much to say. It was a very quick read. It was cute, but it was an adult romance with next to no smut. And I went in thinking it was just going to be a good, funny time, but it just wasn't. I guess it got 2 stars, not 1, because I did enjoy a part of the story and I did think it was cute, but it really did nothing for me. Next, I have one of my buddy reads for the month, which is Where'd You Go, Bernadette by Maria Semple, which I read with Alice. And yeah, 2 stars. I thought this was going to be a 3-star book. It definitely was at the start, at least. There is a lot of mixed media and there are like invoices and notes to gardeners and diary entries. But the story just got less and less interesting as I went on, and I didn't like it. This is about Bernadette, who is a mom and a wife, and she disappears, and that's it. It just wasn't a good time at all. I am glad I finally got to this, but I'm very glad that it is leaving my physical TBR. Now I've got really bad pins and needles. I never learn. Ow. I might have to take a break. This is painful. Okay, the book I am most disappointed about this month is Escape Room by Maren Stoffels. I have a real thing for horror kicks to escape rooms, like escape rooms where they turn out to be murderous and you're actually locked in, which is what this was. It says all they need to do is get out, but what happens if the game master has no intention of letting them go? First, I thought this was going to be gory horror, and it became quite clear pretty soon in that that wasn't quite where this was going. My main issue with this book is it is not very long at all. It is just over 200 pages, 207. Some of the pages are pretty much blank as well. Like, there's not a lot going on. And I feel like with a longer book that would have worked, but there just wasn't enough in this for me. We didn't get to know the characters that well. I didn't care about them. I won't spoil it. Somebody is in a lot of pain and I didn't care because I just hadn't got to know them very well. And I also feel like the relationships were founded on nothing, and the actual scariness of the escape room wasn't there for me. Like, I wasn't worried about these characters at all. So yeah, 2 stars. I appreciate the idea. It just didn't work for me. Okay, and now on to the 3-star reads. One that I have already unhauled, is actually packaged up ready to post today, is All the Missing Girls by Megan Miranda. So I read this on a few people's recommendation, mainly my friend Sydney, and it was fine. The story was a good idea. I wasn't fully a lover of how it was constructed, so it was one of those where we find out what's happening and then we go back a day, back a day, back a day. So we had over 2 weeks of going backwards in time, one day after the other. So I felt like as soon as I started caring about what was going on, then we went back 24 hours and I didn't care again, which did sort of disjoint me from this. Like, I wasn't in the story anymore. I was just like, oh, okay, well, I better not get too invested because we're going to lose 24 hours soon. I liked it. I felt like as a thriller, the outcome was a little predictable, but it was fine. So 3 stars. Next, I have The Declaration by Gemma Malley. I had very, very high hopes for this because Gemma Malley wrote one of my favourite dystopians, The Killables. This was fine. It was a good idea. So this is about a society where you can live an eternal life. So you sign the declaration if you don't want that, I believe. But you can opt out because while you're living this eternal life, you are not allowed children. Because the population can't handle it, there's not enough resources. So you can opt out of taking these drugs to make you live forever and have children. But if you are not opted out and you have children, they are known as the surplus population and you're not allowed to have them effectively. And this is about Anna, who lives in a surplus hall, and she meets a guy who arrives there, Peter, who tells her that her parents are alive and well and they want her. It was a very good idea. It was a bit predictable again, so I did enjoy it. It's just not my new favourite thing. 3 stars is fine. Next, I have a book I definitely want to revisit in the future, but for now it's 3 stars, and that is The Giver by Lois Lowry. So this, again, is another dystopian society. So the book is about Jonas, and a lot of the book, really, my favourite parts were explaining this dystopian society and all of the rules. You get different things when you're different ages, and when you're 12, I believe it is, that's when you get your vocation, and Jonas is selected as the receiver of memory. I enjoyed the setup of the world, but when the action started happening, like the ending, I didn't care. It went too quick. I didn't know what happened. I did read along with the audiobook, and I felt like the times where I took the physical book away, because I thought, oh, I'll quickly do something else, I did get a little bit lost. So I do want to pick this up again, especially to read the ending again, because it was definitely 4-star, but the ending knocked it down to a 3. Okay, and the last 3-star book I have here is Blue Bloods by Melissa de la Cruz. This is a YA vampire series, well, the first book in a YA vampire series. So I will be holding on to it because I have the rest of the books. I at least have 5 of the books. So I do want to get round to them. This was really interesting. It's a society of vampires where they are reincarnated, so they can die, they can opt to die and get reincarnated, and they'll all be together again eventually, but they have like a reset. So this really is the book that lets us know who are the vampires, how the society works, who they're under a threat from, stuff like that. So I feel like it was a good setup for a series. 3 stars is fine, but it just didn't do anything amazing to me. I have the next book, Masquerade, on my January TBR, so we will see if I prefer that one. Okay, so 3.5-star books. The first one I actually got from NetGalley, and I've read it before its release date, is Tales from the Hinterland by Melissa Albert. So this is book 2.5 of the Hazelwood series. I have read the Hazelwood, I didn't like it, I gave it 2 stars. I have not read the sequel, but I always said that if Melissa Albert wrote the book of the stories, I should probably say the Hazelwood is about a girl's grandma who is a famous author, and she wrote this book called Tales from the Hinterland, and it's all like grim fairy tales. And I believe, I could be wrong, it's been a while since I read it, that it's out, the book in that world is out of print, you can't read it, but the hinterland is a real place. So I said if Melissa Albert wrote the book Tales from the Hinterland, I would read it. So I did. I did really enjoy it. I enjoyed it so much more than the actual Hazelwood. The stories, some of them were amazing and had me hooked. Some of them were a bit of a chore. So 3.5 stars. I had a good time. And yeah, I would recommend that you read that over the Hazelwood. I definitely preferred it. And the other 3.5-star book I have is Percy Jackson and the Last Olympian by Rick Riordan. This is the 5th and final book in the Percy Jackson series, like this straight Percy Jackson. I did enjoy my time reading this, so I can't say too much with it being the 5th book in the series, but Percy Jackson himself is a half boy, half god, all hero. The books as they go on feature Percy doing specific quests, where this one wasn't a particular quest in itself, it was just what we'd been building up for with 5 books. This is potentially tied with the first book on my favourites of the series. I did enjoy it. Again, it was one where I managed to get the audiobook and read along, so I think that really did help me get through it quickly because I read it in just over a day. I did enjoy the Percy Jackson series. I just feel like I would have preferred it more if I read them as a child or like an early teen, because I would have that nostalgia factor now going back. But it was a good time, just not absolutely amazing. 3.5 stars is still a good rating, I will keep saying it. So 4-star books. First I will go with the one I don't have in front of me because I listened to the audiobook, and that is Leaving Time by Jodie. I'm gonna pronounce her name wrong again. I believe the audiobook says it as Pico, but I've always said Picoult, so I do apologise. This is such a cute book. This is about Jenna, who her mom has gone missing and her dad is in a psychiatric hospital, but her mom and her dad previously ran an elephant sanctuary. So there is quite a lot in this as well about Jenna's mom's history, where she goes to Botswana and she's working on a conservation project sort of thing. And a lot of this book that I enjoyed was in-depth stuff about elephants and how they respond to death. Genuinely loved it, loved all the elephant talk, and I've just noticed how long this video is, so I won't talk for too much longer on it, but if you have any interest in elephants at all, then I would definitely recommend you check this book out. So next, for 4 stars, we have Ghost Town by Rachel Kane, which is book number 9 in the Morganville Vampires series. All of the Morganville books are between 4 and 5 stars for me. This was really, really good. Can't tell you too much about it because it's book number 9 in the series, but Morganville is a town where it's ran by vampires. Obviously people on the outside don't know that, but as soon as you enter the town, you can't leave. and you have to get a protector so that you don't have to, like, so that you can't be killed in the street, but if you get a protector you pay blood taxes. It's really great, and the series follows Claire, who goes to Morganville for college when she's a bit too young to go, but her parents don't want her to go far, so they send her to the safe town of Morganville for a quiet college experience. And in this one we've got Claire and, let's just say, her boss that have a big project that starts going wrong. It was a very good time, and even though it's a long book, I sped through it. Next we have one I'm so glad I enjoyed, and that is Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan. So this is a book about Rachel, whose boyfriend Nick, she doesn't really know that much about him, especially about his family life, but he says that she should come and spend the summer with him in Singapore to meet his family. She goes along, and she doesn't know that Nick's family are one of the richest families in Singapore. As the title suggests, this is a book about crazy rich Asians, and it was very funny. I did enjoy it. Another one where I listened to the audiobook and read along. That seemed to be what worked for me this month. I feel like it would have took me a little bit longer to read purely physically, but I did enjoy it. I have the sequel and I can't wait to get around to it. Next I have my buddy read with Helen for the month, which was Cinder by Marissa Meyer. This is a sci-fi retelling of Cinderella, and I did really enjoy it. In this book, Cinder is a cyborg. There is a deadly plague that is running rampage through the kingdom. A lot of people are dying, so that wasn't fun to read about. Yeah, I don't really know what more to say about this. It's a Cinderella retelling and there's a pandemic. So, pandemic, or would it be an epidemic? I don't know what the official word would be. But yeah, deadly disease killing everyone, and Cinderella is half robot. So it's a good time. I'm not desperate to carry on with the series, but if I saw the rest of the books in a charity shop, I would probably grab them. I'm actually unhauling this copy anyway because I listened to the audiobook and I tried to read along with it, but I got too distracted. So I did just enjoy the audiobook. I know I can get the audiobooks, so I don't really need to keep this copy, but I did enjoy it. 4 stars is really good, but I don't know, maybe I should knock it down. No, we're gonna stick with 4, but it wasn't my favourite thing ever. Does that make any sense? Still going on 4 stars. Oh my god, I'm gonna have to film this in like 3 parts. This is the longest wrap up ever. Now we have Slenderman by Anonymous. It doesn't have an author. This was very creepy. So this is Lauren Bailey has disappeared and her friends are trying to figure out where she is. But we are actually following Matt, I think his name is. Yeah, we're following Matt, who has started to write a diary thanks to his therapist. And they're all just trying to figure out where Lauren's gone. But Matt is starting to see Slenderman and have weird dreams and lose spaces of time. This book was so enjoyable because it's told in mixed media. So here we have like a signed letter from his therapist. We have audio recordings that have like been transcribed. Is that the word? We have text messages. So this whole book took me less than 3 hours to read. Like, I sped through it. It was such a good time. It was scary. Parts of it meant I had to go to the toilet with the light on at night. I wasn't a fan. Parts of it did not make me feel like that, particularly the ending. I feel like the ending did let this down, but I don't know what it could have improved. And I easily feel like there could have been 200 pages more of this mixed media and I wouldn't have minded. Did really enjoy it, and I'm going to hold on to it for next Halloween if I want a spooky read. And the last 4-star book, wow, we're nearly there, is Sword Art Online Volume 1 by Reiki Kawahara. I definitely enjoyed this. So the only reason I read this is because my boyfriend is mad about the anime and I needed something for us to do together. So I decided to pick up the books and then we're watching the anime together. I can't even talk about it without giggling because it's just so not like me to read a book like this. This is about Kirito and Asuna, who are stuck in Sword Art Online. It is a virtual reality... God, I know all the words and everything. It's a virtual reality game, and the creator of the game makes it so that as soon as these people join on launch day, they are stuck in the game, and if they die in the game, they die for real. I can't even talk about how much I like this without being embarrassed. It was a very, very fun time. I think I prefer it to the actual anime because I'm not big on, like, the main thing with anime is how overreactive people are. Like, they will sigh and you physically hear it. whereas the book was written a lot more like normal books I would read, whereas I don't watch any anime, so I enjoyed the book more. I do have book number 2, Cole Got It Me for Christmas, and books 3 and 4 are on my list to him for potential birthday presents, so it's definitely something I'm going to carry on with. And here we go, we have the final 5 books. So 3.5 stars I gave to Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. I really enjoyed this, and Molly from Mind of Molly is an absolute darling, and she made sure that I had the audio for this. This is a book written in verse, which I believe is the only reason why I couldn't give it 5 stars, because I do struggle with books in verse, but I love the story. So this is about Camino and Yahaira, I think is how you pronounce it. It's been a while since I read it. And they have the same dad, but they are unaware of each other. Camino lives in the Dominican Republic and Yahaira lives in New York City. And every summer, the dad goes to the Dominican Republic and goes off the grid for his New York daughter. But on a flight where he is leaving for the Dominican Republic, the plane crashes and he dies. And that throws a lot into the air because the 2 daughters then have to find out about each other. It was such a lovely read, and I'm definitely holding on to it to read it again in the future. I loved it. Next, we have a kind of early YA book. It doesn't feel like a full YA. I don't know why I'm even explaining this. And that is Ketchup Clouds by Annabelle Pitcher. This was absolutely adorable. When I say adorable, it was actually quite dark, but I found it adorable. This is about our main character, Zoe, who is using fake names and stuff. And she is writing letters to a guy on death row. She says, I've done something wrong, not a little bit wrong or even quite a lot wrong. What I've done is awful. And you want to know the worst thing? I've got away with it. So it's her writing letters to a guy on death row about a murder, or let's just go with murder. So cute. If you read any sort of YA mystery, I would definitely recommend this. And there's a lot of contemporary elements thrown into it as well, which is why I think I love it so much. This was technically a reread, but I can't remember when I read it. It was absolutely years ago. I would have been about 13, I think. Okay, it came out in 2012, so I would have been at least 14. But it was just such a fun time, and I would fully recommend it. It was a little bit too juvenile for me, and that's why I think I couldn't give it 5 stars, but I did love it. And next one, I think people are going to be mad about the 0.5 star difference. Thunderhead by Neil Shusterman. I really loved this book, don't get me wrong, but I couldn't give it 5 stars. This is the sequel to Scythe. If you have not read it, I do suggest you do, because it's a very interesting series. Can't say too much about this book, but it is narrated by the Thunderhead, which is like what we call the Cloud now, but just on steroids. Like, it's insane. I did enjoy this book, but I felt like it was a little bit too long, and there were points where I just didn't care, which is why I couldn't give it 5 stars. Like, I wasn't hooked the whole time. But it was a really good time. 2 more books. We have the 5-star books, finally. The first one is A Quiet Kind of Thunder by Sarah Bernard. This is the cutest thing I've read all month, potentially in a couple of months. This is about Steffi, who is a selective mute, and it's about Reese, who is deaf. And they sort of get thrown together at school in a not great way, but where I went to say the Prime Minister, their head teacher, sort of says, oh, you both know sign language, be friends. And it's all about them like learning to communicate with each other, learning to communicate with the rest of the world. It was so moving. I think this book touched me personally because I did have problems with speaking as a child. I didn't speak to any adults till I was about 8 years old. So a lot of the stuff with Steffi overcoming speaking to certain people really did move me, and I absolutely loved it. I think, and I have heard, that there is good representation for the deaf community in here. I don't want to say there definitely is, because I don't know, but I have heard that the representation is great. Really moved me, and I'm emotional thinking about it. And finally, we're on the last book, and that was our sister's approximately pick for the month, which is The Anatomical Shape of a Heart by Jen Bennett, which is also known as Night Owls in the UK. I don't want to say too much about this because at this point in time we have not had our live show yet, so I've not discussed my full opinions, but this was adorable, fully adorable. I did tab it and annotate it. Let's try and find a nice quote, shall we, just to give us some bulk to this wrap up. Oh, this bit's cute. It says, for two people who'd mostly spent time together after dark, seeing him now stretched out alongside me in warm daylight was a luxury. Love it. This is about Beatrix, who is a very good artist, but she likes to draw real life anatomy. So she is trying to get permission to draw dead bodies for a competition, for a scholarship, to pursue that as a career. And we also have Jack, who she meets one night while she's waiting for the last train, but they end up getting on a bus, which is like the night bus or something, which is why it's called Night Owls in the UK, but I have the American edition. I don't know why I'm still talking. Somebody stop me. But 5 stars. So those are all the books I read in December. Thank you for sticking with me for this wrap up. It's going to be a very long one. I'm already not excited to edit it, so yay, let's go me, and it needs to be up tomorrow, so this is fine. But yeah, thank you so much for sticking with me. If you've read any of these books, if you have any strong opinions, please do let me know down in the comments. I would love to discuss your opinions of these books with you. But on that note, I won't keep you any longer, so thank you very much for watching this video. I really do hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one.